So, hey Belinda, it's your turn. Thanks so much for having us once again. I think what I would like to talk to you about is, we touched on it with Gary, was the trauma that he's been through and the persecution that he's had to endure. From your perspective, from a family perspective, how it affected you guys, your relationship, your daughters. I'd like to hear about that, because I think everyone talks about what actually happened to him, but no one really knows or understands how badly that affects the family. I'd love to hear that side of it from you.
I think, to put it in perspective, you need to go back to 2000, when Gary was first diagnosed with his pituitary tumour, and it's a benign tumour, but it was quite extensive at the time, and so we needed to relocate to Sydney for a little while for him to have his treatment. And so to start it, that was hugely impacted our children. It was very traumatic, and so Gary was on chemotherapy for 11 and a half years and had a second lot of surgery in 2004, and he was sick, he was on chemo. I mean, he was well, he was able to work and do all those things, but I just knew he got headaches and gut rot and all those things. And when he started to work out about sugar, when he was given the information to start to consider it as an adjunct to his cancer, and he started getting well, and he started improving his health, he started to lose some weight, but he just, it was amazing, the difference. And so the more he started to look into it, and the more he researched, and then he started to think, well, I see a lot of patients, when he was finding out that it was also affecting inflammation, it could affect blood glucose levels with diabetes. So he started talking to his patients a little bit about it. And in 2011, I'm pretty sure, he wrote a handbook, a little handout, a double-sided page. It's really simple, just some simple techniques for people to be able to reduce some sugar from their diet. Easy ways to do it: drink a bit more water, clean your teeth after dinner, because then you don't have that extra snacking. And I've never seen my husband so excited. The results he was starting to get with his patients, they were improving their health, they were losing weight, they didn't need knee surgery, their ulcers were starting to heal just a little bit. Like, he was the most excited doctor I've seen. And he was going, oh my gosh, I've got the answer. He just kept researching more and more. He came up with his nutritional model of modern disease in 2014. He was on a high, because he was actually helping people, not just band-aiding sick care. It was such a difference. And so I think I was watching him, just everything he was doing and the work, and he was starting to do a few talks, people coming up with amazing stories, going, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much better, I've taken back control of my health. And so when he was reported to APRA, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, the medical board in Tasmania, when we got the notification that he was reported in May 2014, it was like a stab, and he couldn't quite understand it. I should preface that with a couple of years, the hospital, the staff at the hospital was starting to bully him a little bit about what he was talking about. There was undermining some of his work that he was doing. They offered to make meeting times to talk to him about his sugar, because people were getting concerned about it, and then they'd cancel those meetings. And so he was starting to feel a little bit threatened in his workplace with what was happening, but he didn't expect to get reported. And so when this reporting came through, APRA aren't actually very good at looking after the public at all, because they sent through the notification and hadn't actually taken the details of this girl's friendship group on Facebook's grabs. So they redacted her name, and they redacted different things, but they left all her friends down the side. So we were able to work out who reported him.
Right.
So people kept saying it's not a dietitian. What like is a dietitian? Because we've seen all these documents. So we've never mentioned her name. We've never gone out publicly and talked about this, because I truly believe she was, a bit like we've been talking about, had just finished, not long finished uni, and truly believed that what she'd learnt was the right thing, and how could Gary be saying the opposite to what she'd learnt.
Yeah.
But as we thought about it, it was more systemic within the hospital, and we believed the directive had come from higher up, and the questioning, and she probably thought she was doing a great thing, getting rid of this evil person who was talking about reducing sugar. At the time, that was all he was talking about when he was reported. Now, he was learning more about other things, and it became a lot more, but when this first started, it was only talking about sugar. And actually, when you report, I think when he was reported, he was starting to talk about maybe putting some healthy fats into the diet, but originally it was sugar. And so when he was about to have his hip replaced, and he got the notification that he'd been reported, and then he was in hospital. I actually wrote a blog. I had a photographer, and I had a blog page, Bee Photography at the time, Belinda Fettke Bee Photography, and I wrote a blog post saying, "Don't shoot the messenger." Gary's not making this up. This is the science that he's learning. He's contacted people all around the world. Tim know some different people. Dominic D'Agostino. He was talking to him. He was chatting to scientists and other medical professionals, and learning so much, and they were seeing similar results and getting excited about all this. He'd met with Rod Taylor, and they'd been working on the low-carb down under, and so it wasn't like it was just him, and yet they were shooting him. They were wanting to silence the message. And he thought, well, I'll respond to that, and I'll provide virtually a thesis on the results of low carb. And he was actually printing all these pages off, and he was underlining them all and using highlighter pens so they didn't have to work through everything. They could really just see the results so easily from the information he was providing. And they just kept ignoring it. And Gary would say, well, after he provided the science, and that wasn't getting anywhere because it was a 2.5-year investigation, then he'd start to say, well, I think maybe this person's putting in false information, or this person's doing that. I'm not sure, because there was an expert witness as well, and so we're trying to work out why would an expert witness, who is one of the most eminent nutrition specialists in the Southeast Asia Pacific region, why is he so anti-low carb and healthy fats, and where's it all coming from? And I think I mentioned to you before, Gary was talking science. I said, nobody's listening. APRA is not listening to the science. They're not interested in the science. So why is this message not going further? And so Gary was actually at a Senate inquiry talking about the bullying and harassment that he endured, because once all this started, it just got even worse. And at the Senate inquiry, he was explaining how the system doesn't support medical practitioners, because the whole point of APRA is it's meant to protect the public, but they forget that healthcare professionals are actually the public too. And so, causing a lot of stress. We were talking to people who were under investigation by APRA for different things, and it's just a really nasty place to be in. Like, you're guilty until proven innocent, and you're fighting for that all the time. And I was seeing the toll that it was taking on Gary, and some of the incidences that were happening at the hospital leading up to all of this as well. I mean, our kids were very aware of it. Our cat was stabbed.
What?
They had a thing on in the theatre. They asked all the staff to bring in their pets to try and make it as a bit of a fun thing, so that people would try and work out whose pet was who. And so Gary had taken that picture that I showed Pam yesterday of our cat jumping, because it was only for a few days she did it, when little kitten jumping up for a string.
Right.
And I've got this great picture of her just in the air up, and our picture of our cat was taken down. Someone drew a dagger through its body and then put it onto Gary's locker, and he surrounded it in lolly wrappers. And so there's just non-stop little just pushing and poking. And our children weren't young, so it wasn't like we were showing a 3 or 4 year old. Our children were teenagers and young adults at the time. But this is our daughter's cat. And I think this is, and no matter what Gary said to the hospital, they didn't care. And the actual director of medical services was posting on a hate page on Facebook saying that Gary was
This is
criminal.
Gary's boss now, right?
Pretty much Gary's boss at the hospital. And he was posting in the Sustained campaign for a while on this hate page. As the director of medical services of the Tasmanian Health Service, so he had his label and everything, and he was posting these things and getting other people to write really nasty comments. And our oldest daughter was very aware of that. She would check and she would get the shakes, and she'd just say, look what they're doing and talking about you. And so I think the whole thing has impacted the family a lot, the bullying, harassment, but also knowing that he's just standing up for his patients. He's standing up for what he's seen. His own health has improved. And as he said, it's not fair, and I can't be quiet. When they came down with their final ruling to say that he couldn't talk about nutrition anymore to his patients, to the broader public, he couldn't be on social media, and as he mentioned, even if LCHF becomes accepted best practice, you can never talk about it, especially to people with diabetes and cancer. And Gary at first he was just quite stunned, and when we got this notice that it was coming, we got onto the social media and changed. So from Gary Fettke no fructose, we made it Belinda Fettke no fructose, so that I could carry on. So then Gary couldn't be in trouble.
Because at that time you felt like you thought he wouldn't be able to speak at all, right?
Yeah. So Gary had about 8,000 people following him on Facebook when he was first reported, and he had about 15,000, 18,000 when I took over the page. And when we put this notification out, we had over 2 million people view this post to say that Gary couldn't talk about nutrition anymore. And it went everywhere. It was amazing, and the support that we received from people in the community, people who'd been following Gary on social media and sharing their stories, and their support was amazing. But then it was just, as I say, it really affected our family and our kids, and taking on that role. So then our daughters wanted to help, how can we support you? And our eldest was helping to create recipes and different things to share with the community that we're working with. And there's so many stories I could share with you, but it's really, really affected them. And I think the reason Gary was used in the Senate inquiry as talking about the APRA process and the bullying and the systemic problems with the process was because he hadn't actually harmed any patients. And not that a lot of other people have, but just coming under that APRA investigation, there's the suggestion that maybe something's gone wrong, or you might have done something wrong, and Gary had done nothing wrong. Right. So they were able to say, can you come and be a witness, because this is farcical, what you're in trouble for. Right. And APRA doesn't have jurisdiction over dietetics, so why are you in trouble for even talking about nutrition?
Yeah. And then he brought up something as well about the fact that you guys have discovered now that it's as the head of the Australian Dietetics Association that actually instigated this whole silencing campaign.
But we didn't find that out till November.
Right.
Gary's been trying to clear his name.
Address that now.
We've been trying to clear his name. And finally in November we were able to access the 845 pages that the Launceston General Hospital had submitted to the Medical Board of Tasmania. And that 845 pages, when Gary's gone through it, he's found that it's been vexatious, unsubstantiated, and just gone, how can they even be doing this? Right. And 2 letters from the CEO of Dietitians Association of Australia were part of that submission to say, silence this man, and the hospital have jumped and just done it. So instead of having a meeting with Gary, they've just...
Right. And so he's written a letter or something that he wants the hospital to sign, basically admitting what had happened.
There's 2 reasons. We're really, really passionate, the 2 of us. I'm an ex-nurse, so sort of done a full circle, doing some photography for I'm coming back to the medical field. But there's 2 reasons that these letters are really important, the 2 letters that Gary's asking the hospital to sign with as a deed of release. And it's not just about Gary. I mean, I'm passionate about wanting to clear his name because he's done nothing wrong. And by silencing this message, more people can't hear about the health benefits of low-carb, healthy fat. They're not allowed to talk about it. Other doctors are fearing talking about it because Gary's been silenced for doing it. So one of them is to clear Gary's name, but the other point is Gary still can't be supported in the hospital, the Tasmanian Health Service, public system, can't be supported in that environment to provide best practice to his patients, because other areas in the hospital are still saying that Gary's advice will kill them, Gary's advice will harm them, don't follow Gary's advice. And so they're not letting these people, they're confusing them, and they're not letting them get the best outcomes they could be getting. Their blood glucose out of control and they're not healing. And so this isn't fair. So the other letter is to let the hospital know, or the staff of the hospital know, that Gary's been treated badly, and maybe by working towards this, then what Gary's saying, it's about allowing him to prescribe and to care for his patients without interference.
Mm-hmm.
And his contract actually says he should be able to do that, but it hasn't happened for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost as important as anything as clearing his name. It's allowing him to practice.
And not just him,
Yeah.
it's the other doctors that need to be able to follow, the ones that decide this is what they want to do.
Yeah.
They need to not have that fear that this same thing is going to happen to them.
At the moment, interns, residents and registrars, they say, but I've got to get through my training, and you have to advise them, all right, we'll just follow the rules.
Right.
Follow the rule books, do the guidelines until you can get past all your training, and then start to work out how you can move ahead. I mean,
And this
what
is
sort of
what
medical training is that?
Yeah, and then look what's going to be in store for you if you really decide to go this way. So
well, we're hoping that won't be the problem. We're hoping
right, that's what
by being loud that we're going to make those changes.
Correct. So that's going to give them more confidence to be able to go ahead if that's what they have learned and believe.